Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly news show where we keep you up to date as to everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo and just video games as a whole. I'm your host Nick Serpo, joined today by Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
And we've got Nicolas today.
Hello everyone, happy to be here.
Yes, it is episode 31, and we were just talking. We said we knew we've hit our next milestone because Dennis had to make a whole new set of graphics for the podcast. So
That's right.
thank you, Dennis, for
You're absolutely welcome.
Impromptu graphic designer as I send you a hurried message over Discord. So we are deep into the fall release season. There have been a lot of games that have come out lately and a lot more around the corner. It is almost time for Pokemon, as I'm sure all of you are very much aware. We've got a lot of games to talk about, but before we get into that, just a little bit of business. So first thing I just want to mention, this was just announced today. We're recording on a Monday, and it was just announced that there's going to be an Indie World Showcase happening later this week, which is Nintendo's kind of big indie montage celebration fiesta. So yeah, that's coming on Wednesday. So if you are listening to this after Wednesday, November 9th, which is very possible, chances are that event has probably already happened. But we will be talking about the Indie World Showcase and all the games that it presumably shows off. It would be really funny if they had an Indie World Showcase and they just said there were no indies coming. But yeah, so we're going to talk about that on the next episode. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, if you are listening to this podcast, and boy oh boy, have we got an opportunity for you. Because we, over here at Nintendo Everything Refresh, the official podcast of NintendoEverything.com, we are doing our first giveaway. This is our the first time we've given away some games on this show. And Dennis, I have a question for you. How do you feel about dairy products?
Well, I'm not lactose intolerant. I do try to have a glass of milk whenever I can. Got to build those strong bones. But otherwise, yeah, no, I'm a big fan of dairy products. Love cheese. Love sour cream. Yeah, well, ice cream, all that stuff. Yeah.
I hope you like multiple layers of milk, Dennis, and you too, Nicholas, because the name of the game we are giving away. And bear with me as I try to read this out and not stumble through it, because this is the actual name of the game as listed on the Switch eShop. Milk inside a bag of milk, inside a bag of milk, and milk outside a bag of milk, outside a bag of milk. That is the name of the game we are giving away.
It's literally the dairy version of a Matryoshka doll. Basically, where you just keep pulling them apart and there's more of them.
It's Inception, but with dairy. No, if you've checked out, don't check out, folks, because this game is actually really unique. So this is being published by Forever Entertainment for its console release on the Switch. And if you're not familiar with these games, this is actually a collection of 2 games, and they are psychological horror kind of visual novel games that released on Steam. The first one came out back in 2020. The second one came out a little more recently. And they are just incredibly surreal, trippy, atmospheric. I don't even know how to describe them. If that sounds like your genre, I urge you to go check out the Steam page for these games. The reviews have these games as overwhelmingly positive, and quite frankly, I haven't seen very much that looks like this game or has a similar feel in terms of ambiance. So we're giving away in total, Nintendo Everything and Forever Entertainment, we're giving away 10 copies of this little indie game on the Switch. And there are 2 ways to enter. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can go over and you can enter on our YouTube channel. If you just find this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, go down, leave a comment with the word milk in it. So go down, find our podcast episode on YouTube, leave a comment with the word milk in it and a game you're excited for. And before the next episode airs, we will go through and we will pick 5 folks at random from YouTube, and we will message you a code. And you can also enter over on Twitter. So if you're more of a Twitter person, you can head over to Nintendo Everything's Twitter page, and there will be a tweet about this game, which I'm not going to say the title again because we'll be here all day if I say the title again. And if you retweet that tweet, follow Nintendo Everything, and follow Forever Entertainment, you will be entered in that giveaway over on Twitter. So you can enter either here on YouTube or on Twitter or both. And yeah, we will announce the winners of the podcast giveaway in the next episode. So stay tuned for that. Nicholas, what do you think about this game? Is this too much milk for you?
I thought I was having a stroke when I originally read the title of the post on the website, so definitely caught my attention.
Yeah. Look, I am all for you. This is one of the things the Switch does really well. It has really become a home for all these, surprising, I would say, indie games that most people are probably not even aware of. And in a lot of cases, it's like the first or maybe the only console port that some of these games will get coming over from Steam. These kind of more niche games, I would say. But yeah, if you are into psychological horror, spread the word, follow us on Twitter, enter the giveaway, and we will be announcing some of the winners next week. Just make sure if you enter on YouTube, keep an eye on your YouTube inbox, because we wouldn't want you to miss it if you are one of our lucky winners.
Yeah, because then you end up with spoiled milk. That's not fun.
Very well said, Dennis. No one likes spoiled milk. Yeah,
no, exactly. I'll tell you what, though. With a crazy name like that, my God, I mean, you sort of dominate the search engine optimization, right? Because, I mean, how many things really are, you just keep typing that over and over again, and Google is going to pinpoint exactly what you're looking for. So,
Yes. You could probably even just type in milk inside, and I bet it would come up. Yeah. Anyways, that's all the top of the show business I wanted to get into. So let's get into our news, because we do have quite a bit to get to this week. As I mentioned, we are in the middle of all the fall game release craziness. And by the time you're listening to this, one of those big games that we've been talking about on this podcast will be out. That game being Sonic Frontiers, the of great curiosity, I would say, Sonic game. They're calling it an open zone game. So you've got all these big, open world style levels and a lot of side content to do, and people aren't really sure how it's going to turn out, but we've finally gotten to see some reviews for the game. Now the caveat is that as far as I'm aware, there are not a lot of reviews for the Switch version as of the time of this recording. I know I just got my code for the Switch version the day before it came out, so I don't imagine there's a lot of reviews out there for this game right now. But yeah, overall, consensus seems to be that the game is pretty good in some people's opinions, pretty rough in some people's opinions. Nicholas, where are you at with Sonic Frontiers? We've seen more of the game at this point. Are you feeling optimistic about it? Are you still kind of wary?
Honestly, I am feeling optimistic about it. Let's be honest here, it had a pretty rough initial showing. But the more that we've seen of the game, and the more that we've heard of people that have actually played the game, the more it sounded like it is, still a genuinely well-built experience. And I think most of the reviews align with that. The general take seems to be that it's a solid game that still needs a little bit of polish and refining to be a really great entry in the series and to just take this new style of gameplay to that next level. Which I think is, it makes sense considering that this is still a pretty new direction for Sonic. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of the reception that Arceus got, Pokemon Legends Arceus got, where it's kind of going in a new direction for the franchise, and it's good. It just needs a little bit more polish and refining. And yeah, I think that's fine. I'm still looking forward to hearing other people's opinions. I have a few friends picking up the game that I will be interested in just seeing what they have to say about it, especially since one of them hasn't played many 3D Sonic games before. So, yeah, I'm curious to see just more of the game, because it does seem genuinely interesting to me.
Yeah, some of the things, that I've heard about this game, some things that are good is people say, it's the actual, running around the world, the overall sense of speed and the traversal can be really fun. And the big thing I've heard as kind of being one of the big negatives is just that at a technical level, even on like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, there's a ridiculous amount of pop in, as in like you will be running towards like a something that you can, Sonic can rail grind on or climb up on top of, and it will just pop in like 5 feet in front of you, which it does not bode well for the Switch version, and I'm wondering if that's why we're just now getting codes for this game, but we will see shortly. Dennis, where are you at with Sonic Frontiers? Is this something you're looking forward to?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, just to mention the pop-in you were talking about, I think that's one of the things that I think is immediately immersion breaking, right? In any game, really, is like pop-in, especially if it's like really egregious pop-in. There's clever ways you can get around it, but and ways that you can dismiss it. But yeah, if it's as bad as everyone's saying, then especially like, let's just say it is in fact, especially for what would more than likely be the Switch version, something popping up within 5 feet of you, no, that's not good. I don't want, no, absolutely not. Like that you need to, that feels half-baked to me. But that aside, I'm super interested in the game. I think it looks like a lot of fun. I'm glad to see that the reviews have been favorable. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, leaning positive, it seems like.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of 7s and 8s, which honestly was more or less what I was feeling, just kind of looking at it and what I was hoping it would get. But I also wouldn't have been surprised if it was a lot of 4s and 5s also, right? But I'm glad that's not the case. I'm really glad that's not the case, because I think 7 and 8s is more or less what I think everyone should at least have been aiming for, and that's what we got. So I'm happy for the team, and just for Sonic to be in a good position for once, for not having the best history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the game looks great. Is it $70 great, at least for the digital deluxe edition? No, but is it something that I would like to and plan on getting later down the line on sale? Yeah, of course. Um, it's I love when games like this go into a new direction, right? To me, it's refreshing instead of doing the same old formula. Yes, that's your signature, but like we were talking about, like with Arceus, and then now with Sonic Frontiers, I love the new direction. It can
Yeah.
be riveting and refreshing, and yeah, I'm excited for it. But it's not, it's not to me, it's personally a $70 game.
Yeah, well, they have, described it. Takashi Iizuka, I hope I said that right. He's said in the past that, this game is the next step for Sonic for the next decade.
Oh
Like
wow.
they're planning on this being like a building block for future Sonic games. So I think even taken as that, even if the game does seem to have some rough edges, it seems like the consensus of what I've been hearing from people who have played the game is that as a game it's a little rough, but as building blocks for where this type of formula could go in the future for Sonic games, that it's really solid. So I guess there's different ways to look at it. I think the thing I'm most curious to get a sense for is because when I was able to get hands on with this game, like overall, like I had a good time with it. It felt a little rough to play back then, but it was an early version of the game, so I tried not to judge it too harshly. But I really want to get a sense for like, I mean, this is a long Sonic game, and most Sonic games are not super lengthy experiences. I mean, what, under 15 hours? Would you guys say?
If that,
Yeah.
maybe. Are
If
you talking about
that,
for
under
Frontiers or
10?
generally speaking?
Just like generally speaking.
Oh yeah, under 10 for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're saying this Sonic game, could be a 20 to 30 hour just to get through the campaign, and then double that if you actually want to see and do everything. Which I don't know. That's my big question are these new mechanics and this whole new style of interacting with the world as Sonic, is it going to be compelling enough to last that long of a game? Especially in this time period where I feel like a lot of gamers are even more critical about just the bloat that tends to be associated with open world games.
Yeah. I think again, it's interesting that but I think this is something that in a weird way is sort of long overdue. Also, like hours aside, I think giving Sonic that freedom to actually run untethered and have that freedom and space to, really show off that speed is important because I do, even though I like a lot of Sonic games, I do feel that sense of restriction, being in this, sort of linear level based roller coaster format of level design, right? So
Uh-huh.
I would like, and now we do have, a more open Sonic. It didn't necessarily have to be open world per se, but just something that gives a little more to look
Well, it's
around
open
and feel
zone,
like.
Dennis. It's totally
Open zone.
different.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
correct. That's yeah. Thank you for correcting me. but yeah, yeah. No, I think again, it's why I find it refreshing, and I think it's long overdue. So even though 20 to 30 hours might not be traditional for Sonic, I personally find it exciting because especially with his move set, being able to go fast and jump and rail grind, and do all these sorts of things. I mean, that sounds exciting to me to, maybe break through this huge boulder, to find a treasure chest behind it, right? And get a collectible.
Right.
So,
Right.
you have those. I think one of the biggest appeals of Breath of the Wild, other than it being a Legend of Zelda game, was the exploration factor. So if you can nail that exploration factor, never mind, even if the story's kind of whatever, I that to me is what's going to be the most compelling part of that game and keep people focused and gripped onto that game. And next thing you'll beat it because you have been able to put it down because the exploration factor of it. So.
Yeah, or you'll just spend 20 hours fishing with Big the cat, which Nicholas, I mean, I know that's
That's
what
right.
you're most excited
I mean, I
about.
think that's a completely fair way of spending your time, to be honest. I
That's
assume
right.
the final boss is related to the fishing.
Yeah,
You got to
it's
catch
just
Moby
like
Dick. That's what it
who
is.
can catch the biggest fish. Yeah, pretty much.
It's gonna become a mega cyber froggy.
There, okay. Yeah, you couldn't have said it better myself, Nicholas. Well, that is not, I mean, I think for everything that like we still don't really know about that game. I mean, we have a much better sense for it now, and it seems like folks are overall pretty positive on it. And I'm excited to actually get my hands on it and be able to see just all the new things they attempted with it. At the very least, it will be an interesting experience, and I'm always down for an interesting game, even if they're not always necessarily great games. I'm always down to try something interesting. Hey, speaking of interesting, we got some additional details on the development of Bayonetta 3, which just came out like a hot minute ago. And Nicholas, I know you have been playing that game. Dennis, you are a big Bayonetta fan. Have
Oh
you
yeah.
had a chance yet?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
And
I'm almost done with the review actually, so I don't want to give up,
oh, okay,
too
all
much
right.
away, because people can go to nintendoeverything.com and check the review there once that goes live. But
Yep.
but overall, I mean, it's to just kind of keep things short and sweet. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. It's Bayonetta, just how you know and love her to be, and the game itself is fantastic. I do think Bayonetta 2 is slightly, and I just mean ever so slightly, um, sort of superior to it. But that's only because I think the game itself is unfortunately being held back by the Switch is starting to show its age with this game. Let me just say that,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if this game is supposed to be running consistently at 60 frames, but it's not, and I feel like most Platinum games, titles do. But overall, it's performance aside, the game itself is great. I just it's just unfortunate that it's restricted at the moment to hardware that is unfortunately not letting it reach the potential that it could reach. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard quite a bit of that. But I mean, Nicholas, I think the main thing I got from when you were talking about the game was that despite the technical issues, you were just still just having a great time with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's definitely frame drops, and the visuals can be a little rough at times, but it didn't get too much in the way for me while playing it. I definitely do agree. It's pushing the limits of what the Switch can reasonably do, and I do think we are getting to the point where an upgrade is kind of getting more,
Yeah.
a little bit more required.
Yeah, I felt that same way when I was playing Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Like, I was like, this game is great, it's impressive, but you can tell, like, this is at the upper limits of what the Switch can handle. So yeah, this seems to be the theme of the season.
Yep.
But yeah, but no, the news this week was that we've gotten some more insight into the development of this game, and I think the big thing that stuck out to me was, and I guess I should specify that this thing in particular is just a rumor, but it seems to be based off, relatively credible, I would say, sources. Take it with a grain of salt. But they're saying that the rumor was that the Bayonetta 3 was originally going to be kind of a semi-open world experience. And I'm interested, I wonder how that would have worked out. Because my understanding is that this is a pretty just linear game, you just start to finish. I don't know, I wonder how that would have worked.
The game has a central hub that you wander around a decent amount. So I assume it kind of just would have been based more... I assume the way it probably would have worked is that you would have had the central hub and then had that lead to each of the individual sections. Because the game's kind of divided where once you get to the hub, there's portals that take you to different multiverses. So there's one that's Tokyo-based, there's one that's like ancient China-based, for instance. So I would assume that those multiverses would have been open worlds that you access through the hub, so probably would have been more open zone if you want to argue it that way, but I could imagine them doing something like that.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see. This game was in development for so long. I think a lot of, they say that, like, this came out in a recent interview, that, like, they were never stuck during the game's development, but that the reason the game took so long was just because they just kept wanting to add more content to it. Like, they just kept adding more and more. Like, one of the examples they gave was with the demons. They call them the demon slaves that you can summon. Like, originally they're like, oh, we just need like 5. And then and then they ended up with just like so many more than that. And so that seems to be the major factor. So I wonder, like, okay, well, if they were working on an open world at this point, like, based on what they were saying, it'd probably be in there. So that's why I'm still not totally sure about this rumor. Maybe they tried it and realized it wouldn't work, but...
I imagine there would be a fair portion of, even if they weren't necessarily stuck on the open world, it was something where they just had to take the time to redesign once they realized that it wouldn't work. So it might not necessarily be a matter of just like spending months and months and months trying to figure out how to make it work, but just realizing that it wouldn't and then moving on from there, maybe.
Right.
Regardless, I'm sure that there were some other factors in terms of like the pandemic and whatnot that probably did not help.
Right. Yeah, they another little tidbit that came out about the development of this game is they started working on it right after Scalebound got canceled. That was when they decided to start work on Bayonetta. You guys remember Scalebound?
I do, and I still ask for it too. I want it back still.
Yeah, that was a real bummer when that game got canceled. I always thought it looked good, but it sounds like its cancellation was what kind of pushed them to start working on Bayonetta 3. So I guess at the end of the day, I mean, Nintendo fans are eating good at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No Game Pass for this one though.
No, probably not. Although I would like to see what this game, like with what we were talking about with how the game kind of feels held back by the Switch. This game feels primed that like someday it really would be deserving of a port somewhere else. I don't know if you'll ever get it, but
not only that, I mean, maybe. I mean, yeah, I doubt it, but I mean, considering Sega still has somewhat of a say in what happens with this property. Granted, it's so minuscule, but like, maybe Sega can pull enough strings at some point to do that. But I think I think a big proponent to wanting to see it on other hardware also is also that like I don't know about you, Nicholas, but I've been playing majority of this game on a TV. I've tried playing a little bit of it on handheld, whenever I'm feeling more tired and it's more comfortable that way. But otherwise, like this game is so like theatrical and like and epic that it looks awesome and it feels great to see on a big screen.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You want the surround sound and all that. You want the
all
whole,
of that.
you know,
I need the
yeah.
full IMAX experience.
Yeah, all that. Yeah. Dolby, digital, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right, let's transition over to our some news this week. So we actually got quite a few announcements and some updates about some games that we already knew about. But I want to start with talk about another recent game. So Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, as I mentioned, just came out a couple weeks ago. I played through it. I wrote a review for it. Really good game. Very long if you're considering jumping into it. But if on the off chance you beat it and you are hungry for more, you're like, this 45-hour game was not enough to satiate my appetite. Well, boy oh boy, do I have good news for you. So we knew Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. We knew it was going to be getting a season pass, but to this point, we only knew about one of the expansions. So there's actually 3 pieces of DLC in the season pass. And they had previously announced that Rayman was going to be in it, which, I mean, that on its own, I think was probably enough to get a lot of people excited for it because, I mean, I don't know what like bonkers parallel timeline we're living in right now, but the fact that Rayman and Mario are going to be in a game together is just wild to me, and probably a lot of 2000s gamers. But yeah, so but on top of that, we learned about 2 more expansions. So the first one is called Tower of Doom with like 4 O's. So pretty spooky. And they're saying that that one is coming in early 2023. And it sounds like, so the way they describe it is that there's going to be a big multi-dimensional tower that's going to have like a new combat game mode that you kind of like experience as you're like traversing out through this tower. They say players will face highly strategic battles. So the way I read this is it's going to be like more difficult content. Is that how that reads to you guys?
Yeah, just like a challenge battle type mode. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense, but it's a little surprising because I feel like there's already a lot of content like that in the game. Like there were some battles that I just I stayed far away from because I went in and I just got absolutely slaughtered, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I don't know if I want to do this.
Oh, 7 Bowsers. Maybe not today.
Oh, well, there's one where, not to get sidetracked, but there's like, it's you have to like go back to the first planet at a certain point once you have a certain number of sparks, and it's just this absolutely massive Goomba, and it was just like so difficult. I was just like, this is, maybe I'm just not strategic enough, but I'm sure it's supposed to be hard. But I was like, I might have to crank the difficulty down a notch. But yeah, so that's the first piece of DLC. And then the second piece we've got coming out, this is where I'm starting to get interested here. So it's a whole new planet, which if you've played the game, that's could be another like 8 to 10 hours worth of content. So pretty sizable. And then after that, later in the year, we're gonna get that Rayman DLC. So yeah, I don't know. It's, man, I mean, I know this is an Ubisoft game, but it's strange seeing so much DLC for what's really like a Mario game. Like this just doesn't usually happen.
Yeah. I think it's a little... I don't know how I feel about the fact that the first challenge battle mode is exclusively tied to the season pass. I just feel like that's a little odd considering the other 2 are being sold separately as well. But overall, it seems neat. It's definitely, it's more DLC than the original game got. And
Yeah,
I imagine this... I don't really have any complaints looking at this. It seems solid. Like you said, the new planet seems like it's going to add a lot of content, and I'm just kind of curious how that's going to be scaled. If it's going to be like early game, mid game, late game kind of content. And then the Rayman DLC, I mean, based on what they did with the Donkey Kong DLC for the original game, I have high hopes for it, because that came out really well, and I assume this will too.
yeah. It feels like just so like off the wall that I'm sure, like I said about earlier in the show, like at the very least it will be interesting, and that in of itself will probably make me likely to check it out. Although I will say I do kind of wish. I mean, I know they say early 2023, but that's really not that far out, and I mean, maybe it's just because I just beat this massive game, but like I'm really not like hungry for a lot more of it right now. But I am curious how it's gonna all play out. Like you know that feeling like when you play something, you're like, oh, it was really good, but like I've had my fill.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, that
Yeah.
I feel like that way. I mean, especially if it's like 50 hours, but like, but here's the thing, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to pacing. Because I've had 50-hour games that just flew by, and then I've had 50-hour games that I'll overstay their welcome a little bit, you know. And
Yeah, that's true.
so yeah, it just kind of depends, really. And then that usually determines, whether I get my fill or not. But yeah, absolutely, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, you certainly could do worse than Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of
Oh
Hope.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good game. If you're on the fence about it and you like strategy and you like Mario, or if you only like one of those things, I would recommend it. I really did have a blast with it. All right, so that was kind of our big update in terms of recent releases. But we did also get some release dates and a port announcement. So one of the games we got a release date for is Dennis and I are very excited for this one. It is Fatal Frame: Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, which
Right.
is the I would say for some fans long-awaited Western release of Fatal Frame 4, which never made it over to the West. And that is finally coming out in March 2023. We knew it was coming out sometime early next year, but now it has been officially dated for March 9th. And Dennis, I don't think that can come soon enough, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, considering, again, we haven't had it localized before, right? So it's like now it's just around the corner. Well, around the corner, quote unquote. But it's it's hard to believe that it's finally happening. But like, we're so incredibly thrilled that it is. But also, like, we've already seen what's coming out in February and March alone next year. So it's like, oh my God, here we go. Here's another thing
Yeah.
to add to the to the list of stuff I gotta worry about and take a loan out for. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, although I think when they released Fatal Frame 5, I think it was, they kind of positioned it as like somewhat of a budget release. I don't think it was a full $60. I might be wrong about that.
I don't
but
think so.
but yeah. No, I mean, the great thing, I mean, there's a lot of great things about these games, but they're not like super big time things. I mean, they're really just, you go in, you immerse yourself in this like just really unique take on Japanese horror, and yeah, I know it's going to be a roller coaster ride, and I'm also just excited because it's a piece of history, like
Yeah.
anytime a game like this is coming over, I mean, it's a big deal from a game preservation perspective, and for fans of the franchise in particular.
Yeah. Until the eShop goes under maintenance, then
Right.
yeah, you can't get it,
Right.
so.
Yeah, Nicholas, I mean, I know you play a lot of Splatoon, but I think that would lend over really well because the motion controls, you're probably like a gyro expert.
I guess I don't see that connection as clearly as you do.
Okay, well, let me explain. So, like in Splatoon, they really kind of push you to use the motion controls to like finesse your aim while you're shooting. In Fatal Frame, you actually on the Switch version at least, I don't know how it is for the other consoles, but you can actually tilt the entire system in kind of a similar way because you're using it as like your in-game weapon to hunt ghosts it's called the camera
Yeah.
obscura, and so you're literally moving your Switch around like a camera to try and get the ghosts in your viewfinder, and so I think you pick it up pretty quick, Nicholas.
I guess I see what you mean about the camera, but I feel like just thematically there might be a few more differences. Maybe that's just me though.
It's all subjective. Do you got an appetite for horror games, or is that kind of out of your area of expertise?
Generally not super into them. Although that's mostly because I just haven't tried many. Then I am, vehemently opposed to them. But
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm generally like, I'm not adverse to horror games, but I do struggle with like first person horror games because I think for me they can just be like a little too, what's the word? A little too intense. But Fatal Frame I think is like, it really strikes that perfect balance because it feels immersive, especially like with Fatal Frame 5, how like I said with the motion controls, it did for me like add an extra layer of immersion to the game, but it's like just silly enough, I would say, or like just I don't know. You get what I'm trying to say, Dennis? Like it's just got
I
that
do.
little bit of like charm to it that some horror
Yeah.
games don't have. Yeah.
Fatal Frame's always been in a league of its own, I feel. So, because there's nothing quite like it. But also, it comes from an era of Japanese horror that I think was at an all-time high, right? Because not only was that around the time of, I mean, like, we're talking about, early Wii, but, what else? I mean, there was Silent Hill Shattered Memories that came out around that
Mm-hmm.
time. You're thinking about also, like, even late into a previous generation, sort of transitioning into the Wii, stuff like Haunting Grounds and Rule of Rose, and
Yeah.
games like those that I mean were so
Geist, of
impactful.
course. You know,
Yeah,
major
yeah,
major IP.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I'm
uh,
totally with you.
yeah. But
Um,
it's an exciting time.
yeah. So yeah, that's coming out pretty soon. Just a couple months, March 9th. So put that on your radar. We've also got a release date finally. I feel like this was announced forever ago. So Front Mission, we're getting a couple remakes in the Front Mission franchise. In fact, the first 3 games are all getting remakes that, as far as I can tell, are coming exclusively to the Switch. But we had no idea when they were coming. Well, now we know that at least the first of those remakes is coming on November 30th. Man, this is really a time for strategy fans. Like, it's ridiculous. We're getting this. We're getting Tactics Ogre. I think like what, like this week, next week, very soon. We had the Diofield Chronicle. We had Triangle Strategy. Like, man,
We could at some point. I mean, we should have by now, but we could at some point also be getting Advanced Wars. So
yeah, yeah. In theory,
Let's
gosh,
not get
yeah,
too
we're
crazy.
yeah, let's not
kind
get too
of,
crazy though. Yeah, I know that's wishful thinking, but
Also,
yeah,
also
yeah.
worth
Front
noting,
Mission,
all of those tactical RPGs you mentioned are Square games.
that is a very good point. I should have thrown Mario plus Rabbids in
Farming
there, but
simulators,
keeping the dream
strategy
alive.
games. That's Square Enix on Switch.
yes, those are the tiers of the games that are coming out. Well, Front Mission is not a Square Enix game, Nicholas. I'm sorry to
Well, the
disappoint
original
you,
one
but
was, I mean.
well, that's true. Okay, but this one is being ported over by Forever Entertainment, so technically, on this very specific technicality, I'm right.
At this time.
Yes.
I concede. Fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really have any exposure to this franchise, to be honest with you. My limited knowledge of it is there was a game that looked very ambitious called Left Alive for the PS4 that was like supposed to be like a very realistic kind of survival horror game set in the Front Mission universe, and it apparently was a hot mess. So that's my knowledge of this franchise.
The only thing it had really going for it was Yoji Shinkawa, who was responsible for the art direction of that game. He's the main designer behind all the Metal Gear games and works very
Right.
closely with Kojima.
Which was stunning. Like graphically, I think
Oh,
that
absolutely.
game still looks really
Absolutely.
cool. But yeah, yeah, I really like the art style for this Front Mission remake. I mean, honestly, I was sold just at mechs. Like that's generally all I need to hear. But it's cool. Like it does seem to kind of keep like the overall like theme of the original game, but it certainly looks like a remake and not just a simple port or remaster. So you can tell that they've put in quite a bit of work. Yeah, I don't know. It's on my radar at least.
Yeah. It's probably... I don't know if I'll pick it up just because I don't know if I'm in the mood for a strategy RPG right now. But like you said, it's super... I really do like the visuals, and the concept of strategy RPG but giant mechs is, that's always
Yes.
appealing.
Yes. Okay, and Nicholas, I apologize. You were in fact right. I went to the end of the trailer and Square Enix's logo is on there. So this is a Square Enix game.
Okay.
I have to swallow my pride, I guess. But yeah. So yeah, that's exciting. And we're getting 2 more of them. So if you really like it, it says Front Mission 2 remake is coming sometime next year. and I guess the Front Mission 3 remake is coming out further out. This one I wanted to highlight just because it's just another just weird release. So the Oregon Trail. Wait, don't tune out. Stay with me, folks. So there was a yes, yeah, it's that game. Everyone dies in the Oregon Trail. The original Oregon Trail is like ancient. It was like I guess you'd call it. It'd probably fit under the edutainment genre. You know, it's supposed to be like an educational game about how hard life was back then and how many people died coming west.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say, Dennis.
I feel like most people would know that at this point.
I'm just trying to find the words, but yeah.
It's. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. Well, it got a full remake exclusively for Apple Arcade in 2021, and now it's that remake that is coming over to Switch. And honestly, it looks pretty good. I will say.
Really, I don't.
Not the type of game I would.
Really, I don't see why they didn't just port the original 1971 version over. I feel like that would have been fine.
Yeah, that would really, I think, land with the kids.
1 kilobyte download size.
Yeah. All the trailer needs to say is just now in 4K. That's it. That's all it's got to say. And then it would sell. That's it.
Yeah, and it's because it would just be like text on screen. I mean, it would, look really great on the Switch OLED. It would have really deep blacks. But yeah, no, I'm intrigued by this just because it seems weird, and I have noticed this. It's been kind of a trend lately of like games will go to Apple Arcade for a little bit, be kind of positioned as an exclusive, and then they'll come to Switch like a year or two later. So it's interesting. That's really all I have to say about this one.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that there were some things about this that weren't quite as good, just that the quality wasn't quite up there, but I don't have enough. I've never tried the game, so I don't have enough experience to talk about that with great authority.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the trailer right now, and just seeing things and the popping up on the screen being like, your party is starving. I'm like, okay, yeah, so this is pretty much the same game.
Yeah. Starve is probably also like how well has a game from like the 1970s actually held up, even if it's been remade.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a. I don't know if I would say like it has that legendary status, but like it is. I feel like one of the like iconic games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it as a concept is like, this is not going to be the next Fortnite. The kids are not going to be lining up around the block to be playing the Oregon Trail. Yeah, it's just it's not going to happen.
Wait till those skins come in.
Yeah, if you put Batman in there. Batman is died of dysentery. There you go.
That's right.
Dennis, you're talking about skins. I mean, I know you can probably skin some animals. Is that what you're talking about? Or you're talking about
No, not precisely. I mean, it's easy to be confused. But yeah, no, I'm thinking like we take the Minecraft approach. We start releasing packs and stuff like that. Change the wagon into like a Batmobile or something. I don't know.
Change it into
you can.
Right.
You can like pull loot boxes to get different color wagon wheels. I heard in this release. That will resonate with the kids.
That's not. I mean, thankfully it's not. It's not being published by EA, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think we're good. But no, in all seriousness, no. It looks like an interesting game. It's again, it's a former Apple Arcade exclusive coming to Switch, and it's a little piece of gaming history. So. If you're interested in the Oregon Trail, that one's coming out on November 14th. So get those wallets ready, folks. All right, and one more just kind of... This one is truly... I was... Of all the headlines I was expecting to read this week, this was not one of them. Do you guys remember this game called Little Inferno?
Yep.
Where you just burn things?
I do, actually. Yeah, I played it on PS3 long time ago.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it originally going to be like a big like Wii U indie title? I mean, I know it came out on Wii U, but I feel like I remember it getting a lot of buzz around the Wii U.
It might have initially been on Wii U. I know it was definitely on there. That might have been the original platform that was meant for.
Yeah. Well, this game came out a decade ago, but for some reason it is getting a DLC expansion entitled Ho Ho Holiday. And it
Okay.
is, yeah. And it's coming to Steam later this month, and I guess eventually it's coming to Switch. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to know why, really, is why I bring this up. Were people asking for this?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I find myself asking that question more and more lately. I think we've gotten to a point with games and ports and stuff where like all you can ask is why. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's a game about burning things, so I guess in that sense, it's probably pretty unique. I can't think of a lot of games that are just about burning things. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean they've got, the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe record beat in terms of how long you have to wait between the actual game release and getting DLC expansions. So that's
Ooh,
interesting.
that's a low
ouch.
blow, Nicholas. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, and also, I feel like there was a point where the game's developers, the Tomorrow Corporation, I mean, they put out all kinds of games. The main one that they were known for back in the day was World of Goo, which, that was that was a big WiiWare game. And then Little Inferno, that was a big kind of Wii U game. But I feel like we haven't heard a ton from them since then. Their last game, I feel like, or one of their most recent games, it was like very programming heavy. Like it was all about
Hmm.
like programming mechanics. I can't remember what it was
Yeah, it
called,
was like
but
a puzzle solving. It was like a puzzle game, but based on programming. I think Human Resource Machine.
right. Yes, that's what it was. Yeah. So in other words, like totally over my head. I just assume I don't know anything about programming, but burning things, maybe we'll get
Oh
behind
man,
that.
that's expert every
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that game is getting DLC coming to Switch some point. All right, we're just about done with our news block, but I did want to touch on a couple of recent releases. As I mentioned, this is kind of the busy season for the Switch, and we already talked about some of them, but there were some other games that are not Sonic Frontiers that I do want to shout out. So this one I feel like kind of snuck up on me at least. Harvestella. It came out last Friday, November 4th. And it overall seems like it's getting pretty good buzz. It seems like the Switch version comes with the usual graphical compromises, and that kind of the vibe I was getting is that like hey, kind of similar to Rune Factor in the sense that like it does some cool things, combining the combat with the farming mechanics. Doesn't do either thing particularly amazingly, like not a ton of, but overall like a very solid entry in the genre.
Yeah, no, Harvestella. I'm sad we didn't get a review copy for that, but honestly, like I'm quite fine with it just because, um, I mean, I mean, ever since the demo, I was tempted to get it on Steam anyway. So, it's one of those games where, and we were sort of talking about this earlier in the day on the Discord, where, I loved the demo. I thought it was fantastic. I played the trial all the way through, and I was excited to, pick up where I left off once the game came out. But it seemed like it has been getting more or less mixed reception. But I don't mind. I don't mind because the game, I think it does what it needs to do. And yes, it can be a little seemingly empty at points. But the big draw for me in that game is the visual direction of it. And I think one of the reasons why I would prefer it on Steam personally is because even though it actually runs like surprisingly okay on the Switch, but because it's so I don't want to say super reliant on it, but a big draw for that game is the art direction, and the Switch version, sort of omitting, the shadows and the blooms and the having some lighting differences and resolution differences, stuff like that. It can unfortunately make the game lose its sense of style, and it's unfortunate because it is a beautiful game. That's why I want to opt for it on the Steam, on Steam instead. And truthfully, I mean, it's the small things, right? Like, I mean, because lighting and shading make all the difference. Because without those, a lot of things look flat.
Yeah,
And,
it can completely affect how the art style of a game is delivered. But yeah, I mean, this game is, I feel like, just notable because it is a big budget, presumably, like this is a Square Enix published farming game. Like this is a farming life sim from a major company that is not Nintendo. And we see a lot of indie efforts, but I feel like something this big we're seeing more of this, but it's still noteworthy for that reason. And yeah, I'm with you, Dennis. The art style and just the overall tone of what they're going for is very appealing to me. It's just, you talked about this earlier, but it's also just a very busy time of year, and I think a lot of folks are going to overlook this game right now just because there's so much else to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a busy time of year, and so I don't mind waiting in a little bit longer, and for a sale that I think is more worthy of the experience that we're gonna get out of it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely on my radar. Definitely something I want to play. Potentially sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, with Bayonetta just came out, and then we have Pokemon here in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, and and that's just that. Never mind stuff from other platforms as well, right? God of War just came out also, so it's getting
right.
It's a
It's getting ridiculous.
big time of the year.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned how much time you have, Dennis, because here's another farming game for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, just what you wanted, right? This one, maybe if you're not a fan of playing a game where you have to live through the season of death, you might like this one instead. Doraemon, Story of Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom. That is, I would say that's a long game title, but it's not as long as the one we're giving away codes for. But yeah, this is it's a Story of Seasons game, but it's also a sequel to a Doraemon Story of Seasons game that came out. So it is like a sequel to a spin-off of what I guess is already a somewhat niche series. I don't know. Is Story of Seasons niche? I mean, I feel like ever since it's became unofficial Harvest Moon, it's kind of up in the air.
Now that you're talking about it, I just kind of wish that Doraemon also had a season of death, because I feel like that would make it more interesting.
That would be very interesting. Complete total whiplash, but I'm there for it.
Punish Doraemon, eye patch over. Yeah, I like.
Yes, Doraemon is experiencing the darkest chapter of his life. Yeah. I guess this game, one of the things that is noteworthy about it is that you can play through the game with just offline local co-op. So you can do farming together, go fishing together. So that's kind of cool. You don't see that in a ton of these types of games. So I enjoy seeing that. But yeah, another farming game. Hope you all are happy.
Nice, chill. It has a very nice art style, honestly.
It does.
It does.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't want to sell this game short. It does look very unique, and I think I said this before. I don't really know who Doraemon is or why he has 2 Story of Seasons spin-off games, but there must be a reason for it. Dennis, do you know anything about Doraemon? You seem
all
cultured.
I know, well, it's not as well known in the West. I can tell you that much. So don't feel bad. But it's
okay.
It's definitely in Japan. It's a big deal though. Doraemon, if I'm not mistaken, is literally one of the best selling properties of all time. It's up there with Detective Conan in terms of we're talking tens, probably if not well over 100 million copies of the manga and just everything.
Really? Wow.
I'm not even joking.
Do you know if it's still running?
I'm serious.
Because I'm not sure of
it. I want to say yes, actually somehow. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that because I'm not Doraemon.
Now I feel bad.
Historian.
I'm dissing Doraemon over here, and I'm gosh,
no, I mean,
I'm the one who's.
Jeez.
Oh my god, yeah, he's been around since 1969. What?
Yeah,
Who the hell am I to be
said.
dissing Doraemon over here? Gosh, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, like I said, like up there with Detective Conan, because Detective Conan's been
Oh,
around
man.
since, let me see here, 19. I don't know. I can't get a straight answer. I'm seeing the early 90s is what I'm seeing. But yeah, it's very very old, very old.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No kidding. Wow. Yeah. Apparently, uh, Doraemon has had over 1,300 individual chapters published in its manga, which is crazy. And yeah, it is a multimedia franchise
Yeah.
to the point where it says, I'm reading the Wikipedia page for it now. Even at one point, like Disney was involved, like and like licensed. They were the one who like licensed the English language release for the
Yeah.
anime, which is just bonkers. So, my
Well, and
bad.
so here's the thing about the tens of millions of copies I was talking about. It's actually much more than that. So I have a little thing here, and this was 3 years ago. It says as of 2019, Doraemon has sold over 250 million copies worldwide, becoming one of the best-selling manga series in history. That's
Wow,
250 million. So
that is crazy.
yeah, yeah, it's a big deal.
Wow. All right. Well, in other words, I should be treating Doraemon with much more respect. So please,
He's your
if you know what's
king.
good for you, yeah, if you know what's good for you, go play Doraemon Story Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom, and ignore all those other farming life sims, I guess, because there's a lot of them. All right, a couple more games I want to highlight real quick. Ghost Song. So this is a Metroidvania that's been getting some buzz, mostly just because of this might, I don't know, I'm not trying to be snarky here, but like mostly because it just seems very similar to Metroid in terms of like its overall like atmosphere and ambiance and themes, and it just looks very mysterious and moody and looks really good. The game's been getting some buzz over on Xbox Game Pass, and so you can play it there if you're not wanting to pony up some money. I did hear the Switch version had a few technical issues here and there, just with some stutters, but seems like the developer is in the process of patching it, and things seem to be getting better with that one. So yeah, I will say we do get a lot of these types of games on the Switch as well, but I don't know, something about this one just seems a little different.
Yeah. The one thing I know about it is that it's a Kickstarter funded project that was initially meant to come out on Wii U, so it's quite the old game.
Oh wow.
Or at least it's been
I did
it's
not
been in
know
the
that.
works for a while now.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, yeah, I guess that also kind of puts it in that tier of like interesting games with an interesting history or interesting, brought back from the past or however you want to phrase it. But yeah, so that is out now on Switch. We also recently got the port for It Takes Two that has been long requested and seemingly long in development. Pretty much the same game, it sounds like. You can even do the Friends Pass thing where you buy one copy of the game and you can play over the internet with folks. Obviously, graphical compromises, as I think is expected at this point, but yeah, really great game. I mean, I played that one with my wife and she absolutely loved it, and it's actually led to us playing more co-op games together. So, I mean, you can't beat that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then one other game I want to shout out, mostly because this one has not been getting a lot of buzz, and I really feel like it should because it just looks super charming to me. So this one is called How to Say Goodbye, and it's a narrative puzzle game where you are helping ghosts, kind of like the premise is like similar to some other indie games lately, where you're trying to like help some ghosts like move on to the afterlife. But the way you do it in this game is through a series of like kind of like sliding tile puzzles. So you're sliding like these ghost creatures around through these just like, in my opinion, just like beautifully drawn environments, and it just looks really charming and kind of sweet but melancholy, and looks like a puzzle game that I could really get into right now.
I don't know what to make of the commentary that sliding puzzles are what brings ghosts to the afterlife.
It could be a metaphor, Nicholas. I mean, maybe it's just overall
That's
their
what I was thinking.
heads. Maybe they're talking about it's like a ghost of old puzzle game genres. I don't know, but it looks really unique.
Yeah, I agree. It looks very
We-
charming.
Yeah. And yeah, that one is also out now on Switch. So if that seems like your jam, go check it out. And that's pretty much our show. Thank you to everyone who has gotten to this point in the episode. But before we go, we're going to end with our classic segment. What have we all been playing lately? I'll just go ahead and say I don't have a ton to report because I have been. I just finished literally last night. I finally actually finished Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Like I beat the final boss. I did all the side content I was interested in that I didn't think would completely kick my ass, and yeah, had a good time with it. And I'm ready to move on to something else. I'm probably gonna be getting started with Sonic Frontiers here since that game launches the day after this recording. So, but Nicholas, what about you? What have you been playing lately?
Honestly, not too much. I think I'm in a similar boat. Just playing a little bit of Splatoon casually and taking a small break from Bayonetta because I've been focusing on other things. So not too much to report really. Just kind of had a pretty slow week.
It is kind of funny, like how I feel like we've got to eventually we're gonna have to put a name to this phenomenon, but I feel like at least for me personally, when it gets to the busy game release season, it's when I actually find myself playing the least amount of new games, and I don't know why that is. I wonder if it's just because everyone's just so caught up in just keeping up with what they can,
Yeah, it's rebelling against the system.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I think I'm gonna need a smaller. We were talking about this earlier, but sometimes you need a small game to kind of cleanse your palate between all these big releases and. Yeah. Well, what about you, Dennis? What have you been up to lately, gaming wise?
Well, mainly just Bayonetta, like we were talking about earlier. That's kind of been my my main focus lately. Other smaller games here and there. Just I like we were talking about. As a palate cleanser. But my main big game has been Bayonetta, and it's been. It's just such a fantastic time. Just like we were saying earlier, I don't want to get too into it just because, I'll have the review up soon. But yeah, it's an incredible time, and it's if you love Bayonetta, you're gonna absolutely love Bayonetta 3. It's more Bayonetta, which is all you can really ask for. I think Platinum Games has sort of mastered the craft of hack and slash games, and they have been for quite some time now. And Bayonetta 3 is just another entry into the excellence of their craft,
Yeah.
So it's fantastic.
And man, I mean, between that and NER Automata coming to Switch just a few weeks ago, I mean, man, if you're a fan of their games, now is a great time for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of great content coming from Platinum. Both legacy content and more modern stuff. And it's yeah. I mean, they've gained a huge following over the last couple of years, and I think that a large part of that catapulted because of NER Automata. But I mean, this is, I'm glad people are finally seeing just how incredible they are. Because when they initially, branched off and opened up, I mean, they weren't doing too well, financially. So I'm glad to see that they're, in a really good place and making all these critically acclaimed games.
Yeah, I really hope, a little off topic here, but I really hope we get another Astral Chain game, because man, I freaking loved that game. I mean, it was a new IP from them, and it was an absolute stunner of a game, mechanically, but also just visually and technically on the Switch. I mean, it blew me away. And I was like, yes, please give me more of that immediately.
Yeah. I know this is an aspect that a lot of people aren't super fond of the game, but I really enjoy how you have these kind of detective portions where you're just running around in Astral Chain to kind of break up the action gameplay.
Oh, yeah.
I personally just really enjoy how it adds that bit of variety to what you're doing and kind of helps build out the world a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, it does so much. It did so much to help me feel immersed in the world, and I thought the exploration was actually really fun in that game. But yeah, off topic. But hey, that is pretty much our show for the week. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in to this episode 31 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. Just again, quick reminder, we do have that giveaway going on. So if you want to win 2 games with milk in the title multiple times, again, very good games from what I've heard, please be sure to enter. You can enter on YouTube by commenting the word milk as well as a game that you're excited for in the comments. Or you can head over to Twitter sometime around the time that this podcast goes live, and you'll see a tweet about it, and you can just retweet that, follow Nintendo Everything, and follow Forever Entertainment, and you can be entered in that giveaway. So yeah, and if you are new to the podcast, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you've been listening for a while or you want to spread the word, please tell your friends. We are on all major audio platforms at this point, so you can listen wherever is most convenient for you. And yeah, we really enjoy coming and putting this together for you guys every week. So thank you to everyone who has been listening and supporting us. And we'll be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.